Welcome to the FFS podcast, for finance's sake. The show that challenges the status quo of accountancy and business. We're here to break down barriers, remove the gatekeeping, and freely share the kind of practical advice and insider knowledge most people keep behind closed doors. Each episode, we ask the uncomfortable questions others shy away from, whether we're interviewing CFOs from major companies or tackling the everyday tax and business issues facing SMEs. No jargon, no fluff, just honest, insightful conversations to help you make smarter business decisions. I'm sat here with Andy Comyn, CFO at Nottingham College.
It's great to be here, Rachel. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And I'm Rachel Chadwick-Harrison, your host. So, Andy, let's get started with how did you get into finance?
Okay, so I went to university and did physics. In hindsight, that was the wrong choice.
It's very mathematical based.
Very mathematical based. I should have gone for finance. Didn't, because I had a really good physics teacher. Very quickly, within about 6 months, I thought I've made the wrong decision here, but saw it through. It's really important, sort of.
Wow, you
resilience.
Stuck through 3 years of uni.
Stuck through it, 3 years of university, and went to and finished. Got my BSc in physics. Probably about 4 or 5 years into that career, I then went to my local further education college, Sutton Coldfield, BMET, Birmingham Metropolitan, and did a Sitting Guilds Level 2 in bookkeeping.
Ah.
That was my first introduction to the qualifications around finance, and that's what prompted me 2 or 3 years later to then go into finance, become an accountant. I should probably say my first career was a very unusual career. I played football. I was a professional footballer. Not many accountants.
Nothing to do with physics.
Nothing to do with physics. Nothing like that whatsoever. It was great. Had the opportunity to actually stay in, but I'd got my physics degree. I was just about to turn 28, and then felt as though, well, if I'm going to make something of my physics degree or a degree, my qualification, I probably need to start now. Otherwise, I would have had a 2-year contract. It would have taken me to 30, and I just had 30 as this age in my head. And oh my God, A, it's old. It's not old at all. I can assure you, it's definitely not old. And B, I thought, well, if graduates are coming in at 21, 22 and I'm there at 30, I've just got no chance. I'm going to miss out. So I need to take this opportunity now. And also, I wasn't earning the type of money they're currently earning. I'm not daft. If I would have carried on playing football, I loved it. But I wasn't being offered that type of money, nothing like it whatsoever. We're on completely different multiples at that point.
Did you feel like that companies would be ageist towards you if you'd got to 30? They'd be less likely to give you a chance over a graduate?
Yes. Now, I had nothing to base it on. That was probably just in my head. But yes, absolutely. I just thought 30 was, it's going to sound quite old. And you're then 8 to 10 years older than any other graduate that's coming through. And yeah, that made a difference to me.
Because you're going in at a basic level. And to be fair, if you're going in with a level 2 bookkeeping qual, a lot of these graduates are coming out with accountancy or finance degrees. So
exactly,
in many ways, they were ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly that. So I ended up going to a relatively small accountancy firm in Warsaw called Boardroom Co, which grew over a period of time, and I think they've now sold out to assets or...
They love buying everything assets.
Yeah. So, but that just, again, it went back to the basics of accountancy, and it really worked for me, and it was great grounding. So when I then moved on to larger firms later on, I could understand the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of what was going on, and that was important. That's the way I learn. I like to go back to the nuts and bolts. I can remember many days just adding up books and purchase ledgers day after day after day, and then suddenly you wouldn't get the right number, and then someone told me about that trick that, well, is it divisible by 9? Then chances are you probably switched it around. You go, oh, and just small tricks like that. I go, oh yeah, and it worked almost every time. That was what the reason was. I then moved on to Grant Thornton, then Deloitte. But when I went to Grant Thornton doing audit, so many people just didn't understand the nuts and bolts and mechanics. And because, yes, they would have got their accountancy qualification, which I eventually did get. I got my ACCA. But again, putting all of that together, I think that has absolutely helped my career, understanding the nuts and bolts and the source documents and where things are coming from. You can start to identify where errors might be. And just, I like that reconciliation, triangulation. You go, does this feel right? Is it making sense? Is it coming back to
does
where
everything
I expect
align where
Yeah.
it should do? Yeah, the foundation is just so important, and people just disregard that, especially when you've got these products out there, you know, your QuickBooks, your Xero, your Sage, that just automatically do everything for you.
Yes, right. And I don't tend to use those now. I'm quite fortunate in my role that I don't do day-to-day accountancy. I say fortunate. I love accountancy. And my little saying...
who doesn't?
my little saying at work is finance is fun. And you could walk around Nottingham College and you will get a lot of sort of senior leaders saying finance is fun just because they've heard it over and over and over again. And I genuinely believe it is. I am very sad. I'll put my hand up. I am sad there. But I think it is fun.
Finance is often like, or at least accountancy is very much like a jigsaw that you put together and you get the end result of the finished picture.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I come to work and do a jigsaw every day. It's lovely.
I think it's perfect. I can remember my mum's telling me many, many years ago, well, she tells me this story now actually, that I used to say to her, numbers just make sense to me. They create a lovely pattern. And I think it's exactly the same sort of thing. So I think I've taken that. I've ended up in the right career for me. There's no question about it. Football's fantastic. I loved it. I'm probably better at finance than I was at football.
Grant Thornton, Deloitte, big named,
Yes.
top 10 accountancy firms there. How did you end up then in the education sector?
I sort of stayed around Grant Thornton and Deloitte for probably about 6 or 7 years. I then went to Kroll, which was a sort of a restructuring, corporate finance type of place. But then I just thought, I then went to GE to do some finance. So it was all about sort of cash flow financing, some asset-backed financing. And whilst it was the easiest job in the world, played more golf, I had more dinners, it was lovely, very little stress. To actually do a deal is very hard because people are used to the people that they work with, and you've got to build that trust and credibility. And that was really tough. And an opportunity came to then work at a law firm, Rag & Co in Birmingham, which is now Gowlings. I worked there for 8 years, and that just taught me is less about the accountancy and audit and all of that, but it taught me what industry was like. It was a law firm, but it's the same sort of thing. You start to understand the business, about credit control, about your purchase ledger, about putting the accounts together, what mattered to the partners. You know, I saw coming back one day from London an advert in a paper for the CFO role at Dudley College. I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I went for the interview, got the job unexpectedly, and started at Dudley. And I had 6 very, very happy years there. It was fantastic. I think now, particularly these days, more and more things are digital, technology-enabled, AI-enabled. And I think that can definitely give the head start to things. Even if it doesn't give you the final answer, it gives you the head start and does a lot of the groundwork for you. And then you can use your accountancy skills and financial skills to go, well, is that working? Does that make sense? Does it feel right? And I do a lot of, does it feel right? And I like to triangulate in my head. But I think that is attractive for people to go somewhere, to know they've got a system, finance system, which works well, and that they can maybe adapt and work to and pull reports off. Because I think the real value added now is in that business partnering type of work, when you're working with the CEO, with the leadership team, with other members of...
Or with a specific department to achieve something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the value add is in finance now. So I talk about having sort of 2 types of accountants, and both are equally valid. I've got the front of house accountant, who can do the accountancy, but actually wants to speak to people and help people and support people in that
with
business.
The people skills.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's absolutely vital. And then you've got what I call back of house.
Back house accountants.
Or they're in the kitchen, they're the chefs. So absolutely necessary, but I think they're the type of roles which potentially are going to be put more at risk in the future because of all the AI technology and digital.
Because they're transaction-based
yes,
roles.
more so. So they're absolutely vital. I'm not devaluing the roles, but I think technology will start to do more and more. Well, it's already doing more and more of that already.
I mean, I love technology and I love transitioning clients from one thing to another and making their lives easier or simpler. Have you been involved in any migrations of finance systems?
We've got a relatively new finance system at Nottingham College, and we sort of did a big upgrade when I was at Dudley College. Now, I didn't get involved in the absolute sort of day-to-day bit, so I was just making sure, are we seeing the right things? Are we getting the system which is going to deliver the right type of things? My role was more about what do we want to get out of the system, and making sure that the parameters, the boundaries are set correctly to begin with.
The strategic overview.
Yes, exactly.
Does this system do everything that our system currently does that we actually need it to do?
Exactly.
And what additional benefit can it bring us? Then is it worth the extra cost, if there is extra cost, to get that additional benefit?
Yeah. All of those sort of things. And then also, what type of reporting can you get from it? And how easy is it to set up those reports? Do you need more help from whoever the finance, from where the finance system is from, or can we do it and learn about it in-house so we haven't got that cost every time we want to change it or change a report? So it was those type of things.
Well, it's interesting these days how many systems sort of overpromise and underdeliver. You say that might be something in-house that was the issue, but I see it time and time again, less so with finance systems and more so with IT and CRMs.
And also HR systems. We probably had exactly the same. In fact, we put a new HR system in probably about two and a half years ago, and they definitely overpromised and underdelivered.
I found that with PO systems.
Yes.
They claim, they're all singing, all dancing, and you sign up because it checks everything on the box and all the rest of it, and then you put it in and oh no, it doesn't do that. Oh, it doesn't work quite like that. And you're like, really? I've invested a lot of time in this. I can't back out.
But it's a salesperson doing selling, isn't it? And sometimes it's difficult to distinguish between what's real and what's yes, we can do that, but it's just not in place yet. I think in general, there's got to be a really strong alignment between the delivery and the sale and the original sort of source of it. If the alignment's not there in anything, then you're never going to get the proper delivery or the full value delivery that everyone's expecting.
We've touched a little bit on leadership and people skills a few times as we've spoken, and EQ is a big buzzword at the moment. What are your thoughts around the role that EQ plays in finance?
I think it's important. I think financial people have to be able to talk to people, and they've got to be people. Exactly, yeah. And that's so important now. And I think you pay more for those type of financial professionals than you do for someone who's a great spreadsheet wizard. We've just lost a spreadsheet wizard actually at Nottingham College, which we're really disappointed on. But and she will be incredibly difficult to replace. But I want more and more people who can talk to others in departments and add real value that sort of way. So I think that's really important. It shouldn't be about finance imposing on other areas. It's understanding what other areas need and how we can support delivery of that. Sometimes you have to say no, but I prefer to go no, but we can do this. And I think having that EQ in finance, it's important to understand. We want to get to a win-win.
You come across better if you just speak down to earth to people in a way that they understand, and EQ really plays a role in that.
Yeah, I think just keep things simple, because things get complicated very quickly. So start off with the most simple thing you possibly can and then build on that.
Well, you heard it here first from Andy Comyn, CFO at Nottingham College, that employers pay more for EQ, for having those people skills. So it doesn't matter if you've got ACCA or CIMA on your CV, you need to put those people skills and the leadership skills and how you communicate with people on your CV.
I mean, we're growing the number of business partners at Nottingham College for exactly that reason, and trying not to just deal with leaders, but to deal with the next level down. So that education and learning and sort of imparting the information to the next generation is really important, so they can start to learn from a financial professional, told hopefully in a simple but effective manner. Gen Z are sort of a different generation, aren't they? And they do things differently. Yes, I think they've got to understand over a period of time that they'll have to sort of have face-to-face meetings more often and more regularly, telephone calls. I know my youngest daughter, she did some work at Nottingham College last summer before she went to university. And she said, oh my God, I've got to phone people up. and she got into it and she did it well in the end. But at first she thought, no, I don't want to do that. It's really scary. I don't want to speak to someone I don't know. And then she had people turning up to her and wanting to speak to her. And I said to her, there was 4 or 5 of them in the line. I said, well, make sure if anyone's turning up, smile at them, and that'll just make them feel sort of calm and welcome. We've just done, one of our career advisors at Nottingham College has just put on a programme which has gone global, which is just about telephone skills for students.
It's so important.
And it's got they're reporting on it in India, in Canada, in the USA, in Australia. It's gone absolutely global, just from a simple telephone skills to improve skills for younger people.
Really needs to be done. So let's talk about the government and the tipped off that they're going to pull the level 7 apprenticeships. Does this affect Nottingham College at all?
Not hugely. We do a lot of apprenticeships. We've got over 2,000 apprenticeships at Nottingham College. Our apprenticeships are generally level 2, level 3, some 4 and 5, but no level 7 at the moment. So it's more likely universities and probably some management qualification companies.
There's a lot of specialist training providers out there that just do level 7, SEMA, ACCA. I mean, your big boys, Kaplan, Babington. Exactly.
All of those sort of things. I understand why they're doing it, and do I agree with pulling the level 7? I think if there's insufficient funding being spent on apprenticeships overall, and there's money left over, why not use that on level 7? If there isn't sufficient money, then I think it's probably more important to put it into the earlier skills, level 3, level 4, level 5. I think there's not enough technical qualifications which are taking place across the UK at the moment. But if there is sufficient funding remaining, yes, level 7 is really important because they will add the real value-adding type of management and leadership skills going forward.
So what's the argument for pulling it? They're saying the completion rates are low.
Which surprises me, because you would have thought at that point completion rates would have been pretty high, unless the day-to-day job is just too great and it just gets in the way. And also, if you've been out of practice from learning or being in education for a number of years, you've probably forgotten how hard it is and how much commitment it takes. Would I want to go back and do my ACCA now? I think, I just wouldn't have time. I don't know where I'd fit it in.
For a lot of people, I do feel there's a lot of taking it for granted. I mean, I imagine you paid for your qualifications, as did I, and they get it on a silver platter. So maybe the value isn't there for them. But the other side of the coin, as an employer, being able to offer a level 7 apprenticeship is huge, because if they take that away from me, who am I competing with? Am I going to lose people to KPMG and Deloitte and Grant Thornton and all these bodies who are going to be able to fund those apprenticeships or fund those qualifications privately? I can't be forking out £30,000-40,000 for a SEMA qual for everyone that walks through the door. No. I must admit, I hadn't thought of it in those sort of terms, but I think you're exactly right. The larger accountancy firms have got enough of an advantage already and got sufficient funding. They don't need any more advantage compared to smaller accountancy firms, which I started at and which you've started at. So I think it's really important that we're able to get the next generation and they understand the nuts and bolts and the mechanics. And the way the UK is built, it's about entrepreneurs and smaller businesses growing to be bigger and bigger businesses. So you need the smaller accountancy practices because they're the ones who are delivering most of the accountancy and finance requirements for the vast majority of people across the UK. It's not the bigger businesses. They're dealing with the large organisations. So I think it is, I hadn't thought of it in those terms. I think you're right that having some sort of level 7 apprenticeship for certainly some of the smaller businesses for that level of for those people will be important going forward. You make some really good points there about the bigger firms being able to pay for these sort of qualifications and the smaller firms not being able to fund them. So what's the result going to be? I mean, I always think when you look at any kind of policy change, what's the impact? How will people bend the rules? Those sort of things. And the outcome's going to be that smaller practices are probably going to have, one or two partners that are qualified, and then no one else is going to qualify. They're just going to leave them on level 3, level 4, AAT, and they're never going to take them to the chartered level. And what does that say for the future of these people?
I guess the other way of doing it is to be able to take talent from the larger organisations, but then you're probably paying a lot more for those people.
You won't be able to afford them.
It's driving up salary costs, isn't it? Pay costs.
And who's going to get the bill at the end? The local business.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe it is a smaller number of partners with more people qualified by experience or qualified at a level 3, level 4. But I suppose it then depends where you want to take the business and what you want to do with that business. And do you get the specialist type of skills just sticking with those larger accountancy firms, which could be the corporate finance, could be the sort of restructure, could be sort of specialist advice. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, because the smaller organisations, the SMEs of this world probably can't afford KPMG and Ernst Young and Deloitte. And what, as good as they are, there's got to be a separate offering. We've got to have sufficient difference in the offering across the UK that SMEs and others have got the right choice to be able to make. I think that is really important, that wide variety. And actually, I've done some reading on sort of leadership, and actually, the broader people's experience is when they're younger or as they're developing, the better their outcomes normally are, because they've got a better understanding of what goes on in other parts of the organisation. So whether it be moving from different finance functions, or whether you're going from finance into HR, into some sort of reporting, you've got a better understanding and empathy with what's going on, what needs to happen in other parts of the organisation. So I think it's really important. And from an interest perspective, I think having a variety of different things just makes a job more interesting, and you become more rounded as a person. And hopefully you start to understand that finance is fun after all.
Well, I've got to say, I don't think withdrawing the level 7 apprenticeship is the answer. Well, let's move on to topical subjects. Trump's tariffs, and have you read the news Rachel Reeves is going over there?
No, I hadn't heard that. Okay.
Not sure what she's going to achieve by going over there.
No, I'm not. I've no idea. Yeah.
But she's been told she has to get some ink down, or so the news app tells me. What was your take on the Trump's tariffs?
It wasn't good. My take definitely wasn't good. He's trying to. What's he trying to do? Make America wealthy again. I think he's now termed it, hasn't he? Mauer. I just can't believe the tariffs are going to actually help make America and the world wealthier. It's having a huge impact on the stock markets. It's going to cost businesses and citizens more to buy things. Inflation is probably going to go up. I cannot see any good in it whatsoever.
I think I'm actually going to disagree with you, controversially.
Oh, okay.
I think it makes sense. Pretty much every other country charges tariffs on goods coming in. Why shouldn't America charge tariffs on goods coming in?
But it's just the level of tariffs, and also the way that he calculated it about the deficit. So you got someone like Lesotho, who is being charged a huge tariff because they export diamonds to the USA. And they're not going to be able to get there anywhere else. So it looks like they've got a huge trade deficit with America, but they're also very, very poor in Lesotho, so they're not going to buy American goods. And then you look at sort of clothing manufacturers in wherever it may be, Thailand or Pakistan or other areas like that. Do America really want to start to make T-shirts again in America? I would suggest not. I would say if you're going to do more manufacturing, do the higher value manufacturing that can really make a difference to America and other organisations. Don't go for the below value manufacturing.
I get your point, and I do think just these crazy tariffs all over the shop make no sense. but could he not have done like 0.5% on everything? Something small, that actually, because of the volume that comes in, is a huge impact.
Yes.
But doesn't massively affect the end consumer.
Yeah. I think that's got more merit in that sort of thing. So is it tariffs do I think tariffs are wrong in general? Maybe not, but the way he's gone about it and the level of the tariffs, I don't agree to. And I think what's happened is huge amount of uncertainty. And in the business world or globally, uncertainty is never a good thing. People don't want to invest and and won't invest. And I think you just look at stock markets, you think about what's going to happen about innovation and technology going forward. Can all of these magnificent 7 companies carry on the level of investment? You just don't know, because you don't know what's going to be happening in the future. And can they get their hands on semiconductors, or how much is it going to cost them to do all of those sort of things? So I think the level of tariffs and the uncertainty it causes, I'm not a fan of.
So all in all, tariffs, not necessarily a bad idea. Putting massive tariffs in place overnight in some places, not a great idea. I do not like overnight change. We need to be able to plan for change. It doesn't make sense.
Definitely agree. And it just causes more uncertainties, doesn't it?
Massively. Well, I just want to sum up and thank you so much for coming in, Andy. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you today.
No, it's been great. Really enjoyed it, Rachel, and look forward to hearing the outcome of it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for tuning in to this next episode of FFS for Finance's Sake, and we will see you soon.
And don't forget, finance is fun.
It totally is. Thank you for tuning in to our latest episode of FFS. If you learned something, that's great. If you're mad, that's even better. See you next week on For Finance's Sake. Just as a reminder, if you have a business and you have something to say, or you're a CFO with a story to tell, come on the podcast and enlighten our listeners. Just get in touch by emailing us at podcast@chadwickaccountants.co.uk. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to hit follow so you never miss an episode. We're on all the major platforms. And for even more insights, behind-the-scenes content and bite-sized advice, connect with us on social media. You'll find us on LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Chadwick Accountants.